Hi, so today we're going to talk about concept design. This is a piece for Harbinger Down. I was privileged enough to be able to be a creature character concept designer for the movie, and this is a piece that is featured in the Making of Harbinger Down book, which I'll leave a link to. But the story behind this is that when Harbinger Down was doing its Kickstarter through Studio ADI, Alec Gillis needed some help with social media, so I agreed to help him. I said, I don't have any money to pledge to your Kickstarter, but I do see some things you could be doing better with social media. And so I really kind of ended up leading, at least partially, a team of dedicated fans to help get the word out about the Kickstarter, and it was quite something. So as a thank you, Alex said, hey, would you like to try your hand at designing some creature effects for the movie, with the caveat that there's really no guarantee any of them will be used. But it was a fun experience. I don't really think anything I did was used. I mean, ultimately the concepts were there, but Tim Martin, who sculpted most of the creature effects for the movie, did a lot of designing on the fly, kind of according to what was available and the time limit that he had. But some of the concepts that we came up with along the way were very interesting, so I wanted to explore them, talk about a little bit as well about how the images were created, because as you can see, this isn't just a normal sketch. This is kind of a Photoshop design, kind of surrealistic. And I want to talk about how we got to images like this. So this is what would be if you are, and by the way, minor spoilers for Harbinger Down. I recommend you go see it. It's on Amazon Prime right now. It's also available on DVD through Amazon, and I believe you can get Blu-rays as a quote-unquote free gift when you order a signed Harbinger Down print from Studio ADI's Big Cartel. Anyway, so this guy was supposed to be a cosmonaut, a Russian cosmonaut whose body had been frozen in ice for, I don't know, like 30 years, give or take. And he's got an alien entity inside him that when he thaws, kind of shed his body like a skin. So I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to have a design where his body kind of unravels, like you've seen people kind of cut an orange in a spiral cut, or maybe the Pillsbury, when you're making the Pillsbury muffins or biscuits, you unpop that thing and it kind of unravels in a spiral. I thought it'd be something different than your average, chest burster type thing that we've seen a million times. So I wanted to create this thing where his body unravels, and if we kind of zoom in, we can see that he's kind of taken on the DNA of a lot of the sea life in the ocean. The idea being that the ocean is kind of this primordial DNA soup with all the kind of genetic information of all these different animals. So I brought in these crab legs, these kind of mollusk attributes, and these tentacles here, I believe they're actually, where did I get these? Anyway, so the body unravels and you can see the cosmonaut's head, and I want to show you a little bit about how I did that. So a lot of these elements are elements that I photographed myself, and I started by taking I can't remember, I think it was some sort of Barbie doll, and I actually put packing tape around the Barbie doll. This is a little Google packing tape sculpture. It's a really fun art form. So I took saran wrap and placed it around, I think, a Barbie doll. And then I packed little bits of packing tape all around it until the buildup of packing tape left this retained shape. So I cut open the packing tape sculpture, pulled out the Barbie doll, and I was left with this. Then I put some latex and paint around it. Very simple, very rudimentary. I actually wanted it to be rough. Looked like it was kind of tearing apart. And then I put a wire inside of it so that I could unravel it but have it retain its shape. So you could see the different stages of it unspiraling like this. There's the wire inside of it. So this was a kind of a fun little way to get some real textures. And I love as well, I can't remember what I painted the inside with, but you know, I just really love it. Got you all this texture, all of this kind of weird lighting inside, and it was really great. So I photographed that, and then here's another one of the designs. Let's see. Oh, this is a tentacle. Like I said, this is some sort of, I use this as a tentacle, but it's some sort of egg thing that some sea creature leaves behind. I can't remember what it is. Let's see now. Cosmonaut design. Let's see. Stage C. So anyway, I went into Photoshop. As you can see, I cut it out. So this became the base layer for the design. And we have, let's see, what else do we have here? So I started taking all these textures. You can see I did little latex textures. This is on top of another Sculpey piece that I created, but I decided to photograph the texture. I created these weird little gooey things with wire and latex just to photograph so I could cut out. And I'll show you later on what I use that for. I also had this guy here, also made out of a lot of packing tape and bubble wrap, very roughly painted, but it was kind of fun to get some cool tentacle shapes. I like I said, I treat this stuff kind of rough so I can make it quickly, and also I find the textures interesting, and I know that these aren't going to be the final textures. I'll overlay other textures. This is a little something here. I'll show you the end result. I think I have it here, but I just took a couple of, see, I think I made a weird little ball out of Sculpey, and there was a little rubber bouncy ball. This is all just latex. And I just made this weird thing because the idea was once the creature kind of unraveled, it shot this kind of mass of organic matter up onto the ceiling, which would later become the chandelier creature, which you saw Tim Martin's design and creation of in the last video I did about Harbinger Down. So you can see though that I took a fair few amount of photographs of this. And it's just a rough kind of thing. It's throwaway. It's no beautiful work of art that I was going to keep around. It's got a little wire with all these kind of sinewy bits of latex coming up. Anyway, so let's see. So you can see I made tentacles, photographed them. So all to be cut out in Photoshop, and then used, let's see. Here we go. So here's the final result for that one. So give or take, I think I did more work on this one. This was a work in progress piece. But you can see the body completely unravels. And I went and I found, just using Google, all these pictures of crabs, crab legs, different kind of mollusk or crustacean sea creatures. And I put all these textures inside. So it looks as it unraveled, all these little crab legs and stuff are coming out like some sort of weird crab centipede. And I think the big concept that I knew Alec couldn't afford to do on the budget was that this thing would kind of flatten itself out and crawl away like a weird centipede, where all these centipede crustacean legs on the bottom, but on the top, where you'd normally see just the carapace of the centipede, you'd see the remains of the human body kind of staring back up at you and blinking at you. But I didn't bother designing that because I knew there was no way on Alec's budget that we could do that. Since then, I've thought of ways you can do that kind of half practical, half digital, which is something that I'm very good at. I'm very good at doing non-CGI digital. That is to say, taking a lot of different practical elements and combining them together, just like we do here in Photoshop, to make something. This is another one that I wasn't entirely happy with. I ended up not presenting this one to Alec, mainly because this like little bulbous eye thing here looked a little too old school sea monster, and the tentacles were a little too suction cuppy. It looked like something from a pirate movie. Like this is some sort of alien pirate. This might be cool for something like Star Wars, or, you know, universe like that. But yeah, I did. I spent all this time cutting out all this stuff so I could have this, you know, this was originally laying on the ground, but in this sense, it looks like it's, you know, moving of its own accord. These tentacles are defying gravity because there's actual muscle pulling them. So anyway, let's break this down, and I'm going to try and kind of keep this to about there. Okay. So what's going on here again? So we've got textures. This is just a, let's see if I can, this is a blend mode. Let's turn this to normal for a moment. So you can see this is just photo. I think this was like a greasy pan or something. And you see also I took the time to cast a shadow just to show this in an environment, because the idea is they find this down in the lowermost hold of a ship where they store the crabs. Or maybe this was the engine room, actually. No, it was the engine room. But let's get rid of that, and let's get rid of some of these adjustment layers, curves, hue, saturation. Let's just start kind of deleting away stuff so you can see exactly what I added. So here are the tentacles, and here's a shadow of a tentacle. Let's zoom in on that. Shadows are very important in selling an image. Now I know this isn't the most realistic looking image, but I was very inspired, and still am, by an artist who also sculpts, uses Photoshop, paints. His name's Dave Mckean. If you haven't heard of him, Google him. His work is extraordinary. I whited out the eye here. Interesting thing about this head is, let's see, is there a blend mode on that? No. This head is actually, I think, it's a profile from a coin, a close-up photo of a coin. I can't remember what the coin was. It wasn't any of your normal currency. But, you know, just taking different elements, you know, look at things and see what they, not what they are, but what they can be. Some sinew, you can look down here. Some goo strands, I guess is what you call that. I just wanted to kind of give the illusion that there was some strands being pulled out, like it's rending and tearing away, but it's also very soft. And here's the crab leg layer. So let's delete away these. Oops, some more crab legs on the neck there. Oh, and here is, just like in the last one, let's see, really defining your shapes by adding in shadows and highlights. I just came in, these are, let's see, this is a screen mode of the same image. And then this is a multiply mode with the opacity lowered a little bit. And then I just come in with a mask and paint out the parts. Actually, what I do is I fill in with a paint bucket just so the mask is completely transparent. And then I come back in with a brush and paint in where I want the shadows. But it really kind of adds some depth to it. And then, of course, there's the actual body. So we're getting rid of all these tentacles, and then here's the shadow on the wall. So all you're left with is kind of this, you know, this is it. And then shadows, I think that shadow is the sum part of everything. Let's just fill it all back in and have a look. And this is really fun to do. This is a different way to design. Everybody has their own way. I will take to pen and paper a lot. A lot of people like to design digitally. But, you know, for me, I like to design in ways that kind of will bring you unusual things that maybe you don't think of when you're just sketching it out. They're instantly recognizable as a different kind of concept. That's kind of what I like about working with Photoshop these days. You know, you have access now to programs like Photoshop and Clip Studio Paint, where you have 3D models that you can paint over. You can photograph things. The only disadvantage of this is that when you take this into a shop and say, hey, you know, create this, they might go, well, this is kind of like a postmodern looking interpretation. So, you are leaving the people in the shop to, kind of guess at certain things and do their own interpretation of it, where, a very specific drawing will give them all the detail they need and they just copy that. I think there's merits to both way, but I think when you're in a shop, there's definitely a time constraint. And so, if you have an artist that doesn't want to guess at what you're trying to say, it helps them to have a very specific drawing. But I like conceptual stuff like this because it veers in a different direction. It gives the director and the design, whoever else is working on the film, kind of like a little bit of a different mindset, a different mood to shoot for. So I do enjoy stuff like this. The thing about this character was when I presented it to Alec, he said, well, that's really cool, but I don't know how I'm going to do that in such a limited amount of time on a budget. Now, I know how I would do it, but Alec knows what is available to him, time-wise, budget-wise. But I would have done this as a miniature. I don't know how. I think what I would have done is I would have packed the tentacles inside a sculpt that was like I did, like a packing tape sculpture. And I would have put a rod at the top that I would have digitally erased and have a puppeteer twist it so it unfurls. The legs is, all those legs inside, you want those to be moving. So I would make those out of some sort of lightweight material that is buoyant. So I'd actually do this underwater so that when you unfurl it, the motion of the water just causes those things to move on their own. But if you're, shooting underwater, but you don't want it to look like it's underwater, the audience won't know. They'll think those legs are moving of their own accord. The tentacles themselves, what I would do is I would put those inside the body, but I would make those out of a heavier material instead of something like latex. Latex is super buoyant. I mean, good luck. If you don't have something inside the latex to weight it a bit, it just floats right to the top, straight up. So heavier material for those tentacles. So as you unfurl it, those tentacles come spilling down. You shoot it upside down, so you flip the camera over so it looks like it's standing up. So again, gravity is kind of acting as the motivator for those tentacles, but since the camera is flipped upside down, or the image is flipped upside down, it makes them look like they're reaching up. They actually did use this trick in another scene for Harbinger Down, where a giant mutant creature comes out of the bowels of the ship and kind of like cries out to the sky, reaching out with all these tentacles. It looked very cool. Anyway, so that's how I would do that, and I would do some digital rod removing. Maybe shoot it against a green screen and then key it into the setting. But it's always more fun to do it as a miniature, like a miniature. If you can get a miniature set underwater. But that takes time. It's Alec was in a hurry. He did like the idea. Maybe I'll use this idea in something down the road. But again, I love the idea of instead of something just bursting out of the body, have the body actually kind of very artfully, almost like a dancer, like unspiral in this very kind of surreal way that makes the brain go, what am I looking at? It has a real, truly alien feel to not just the design, but the moment, what you're watching happen. Anyway, I'm going to stop here because I'm very busy at the moment with a VFX job I'm on, but I wanted to take a break and do this. I have other designs to show you, though, which I'll break down. Here is a tardigrade. I'll explain what I thought of this. Was a tardigrade design I did for Harbinger Down. And then here is a design for the hold creature, which definitely it turned out a lot different with what they did. I liked what they did. But there were some aspects of this that Alec really liked too. So I want to talk about that. Oh, and then there's this kind of, it's really not worth going over too much. Just a very quick design that I didn't really know where it was going. Just thought it'd be fun to have a body kind of torn in half and maybe do a gag with a hole in the floor, kind of like they did with Bishop and Aliens, and have some tentacles slither out. Looks like she's smiling. She actually isn't smiling. Her mouth is closed, but the way that I painted it just kind of ended up looking like she was smiling. Anyway, that's it. So come back. I will do more concept design breakdowns, and maybe we'll do some more concept designs as we go, because I've got more projects coming up, which I would love to have you along for the, as these things develop. So thanks very much for watching, listening, and I'll be back later with more. Have a great day.